work to live, but you live working. Carl Jung. You wake up, not because you're rested, but because the alarm told you to. You drag yourself out of bed, eyes half open, coffee in hand, and march into another day that looks exactly like the one before. Not living, just functioning. You tell yourself it's normal, that this is what adults do. But somewhere deep down, there's a quiet scream, a voice that says, "This isn't it." Carl Jung believed that when your life is consumed entirely by function, when your soul is neglected in favor of endless productivity, something dark begins to grow. A quiet resentment, a subtle emptiness. You start to confuse busyness with purpose, action with meaning, and before you know it, you're not living to work. You're working to avoid the discomfort of looking inward. Modern society glorifies the grind. You're told to hustle, achieve, push harder. But no one tells you where that road leads. And when you finally get there, the job, the house, the paycheck, you look around and feel nothing. That's because you didn't build a life. You built a cage. Jung saw this pattern as a form of spiritual starvation. The soul doesn't thrive on routine. It thrives on meaning, on presence, on moments of stillness where truth can rise to the surface. But most people are too busy running from themselves to notice they've lost their own reflection. You weren't born to survive Mondays and count down to Fridays. You were born to wake up fully. And maybe the first step isn't changing your job, but asking yourself, what are you working for? And what's working against you? You might think you're doing all this for your future, for stability, for the people you love. But if you're honest, when was the last time you actually felt alive? Most people don't notice the moment they trade their passion for a paycheck. It happens slowly, silently, one compromise at a time. You say yes when you mean no. You stay late even when your soul is tired. You smile at meetings while your spirit sleeps. Jung warned, when the outer life is overemphasized, the inner life starts to decay. And that decay doesn't look dramatic. It looks ordinary. You laugh less, dream less. You become efficient, not inspired, and no one notices. Because in this world, productivity is praised, while inner death goes unnoticed. But here's the truth, you can't numb the soul forever. At some point, the discomfort catches up. It shows up as burnout, as irritability, as that quiet, aching voice that says, there has to be more. And that's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of awakening. Jung believed that every breakdown is a signal, a message from the unconscious that your path is out of alignment. You don't hate your life because you're ungrateful. You hate the version of yourself you've become in order to maintain it. That realization isn't destruction, it's liberation. Because now, for the first time, you're not asking, what do I need to do? You're asking, who am I without all this noise? When your identity is built on your job title, your schedule, your output, losing those things feels like losing yourself. That's why most people never stop. They fear stillness, because in stillness the masks fall off, the distractions fade, and what's left is you. Raw, unfiltered, unimpressive to the world maybe, but finally visible to yourself. Jung believed that the path to individuation, becoming your true self, requires pulling back from the collective noise, and that can feel like death to the ego, because the ego wants validation, it wants control, but the soul, it wants truth, and truth doesn't scream, it whispers. Only when you slow down long enough do you hear it calling. The paradox is this: when you stop trying to be someone, you finally become yourself. You stop running toward promotions and start walking toward purpose. You no longer grind out of fear, but create out of fullness. That's the shift. From survival to presence. From ambition to meaning. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Not what society expects, not what pays the most, who you truly are." That journey isn't glamorous. It won't win you applause, but it will return you to yourself. And in a world full of sleepwalkers, the awakened man is a dangerous force because he's no longer owned by the system. He sees through it and walks beyond it. Most people spend their entire lives reacting to bills, to expectations, to other people's emergencies. They wake up tired, move through the day in a fog, and collapse into bed without ever asking, "Is this the life I chose, or the one I was handed?" Jung would call this the unexamined life, where your unconscious patterns dictate your reality. You work not because you love it, but because you fear what happens if you stop. And that fear keeps the machine running. But once you become conscious, once you start observing your habits, questioning your routines, daring to pause, the illusion starts to crack. You realize the system wasn't built for your fulfillment. It was built for your compliance. And the second you stop playing along, everything changes. Here's the truth they won't tell you. If you died tomorrow, your job would replace you in a week. But your soul wouldn't. Your essence, your creativity, your truth, those are irreplaceable, but only if you live them. Carl Jung believed the most dangerous man is the one who knows himself, not because he's rebellious, but because he's rooted. He doesn't need the system's approval to feel worthy. He doesn't need to keep up. He's free. So ask yourself, are you working to live or living to work? And if it's the second, what are you actually building? A life or a prison? Because in the end, it's not your paycheck they'll remember. It's your presence.